thank you to the governor for coming today. And back to agenda item number 1, the roll call of the county advisory boards. Will you please stand and announce yourselves? Moving on to agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. Chairman Wallace, for possible action, the commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take it out for public comment since this is an action item. Public comment in Carson City. Seeing none, public comment in Las Vegas.
No comments in Las Vegas.
I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion. Mr. Drew.
Chairman, I'd move to approve the agenda as presented for today.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Young to approve the agenda for today as presented. I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 3, Nevada Department of Wildlife project updates. Secretary Wasley, informational. The commission has requested that the department provide regular project updates for ongoing projects and programs as appropriate based on geography and timing of meetings. These updates are intended to provide additional detail in addition to the summaries provided as part of the regular department activity report and are intended to educate the commission and the public as to the department's ongoing duties and responsibilities. Director Wasley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the agenda item says, we like to try to take advantage of our geography and the timing of issues to make the commission, the county advisory boards, and attending public aware of some of the ongoing activities of the department. You'll notice that there's a little bit different structure to this agenda, in particular this agenda item, which is typically a little bit deeper into the agenda. At the time we developed the agenda, we were not aware of how much of the governor's time we may or may not have. We thought that there could be some value in providing him some exposure to some of our activities as well, so we moved that to the front of the agenda. Unfortunately, he had some other business to attend to. However, I still am excited about the topics that we have today in this update. There are 2 presentations that department staff has prepared for you and the attendees. One of the items is an update from our law enforcement division. We're in the middle of a very busy hunting season. There's a number of cases that I think you'll find interesting. I know there's been an expressed desire by the commission and members in hearing about some of these cases. So Chief Warden Turnipseed is here to provide an update on several cases of interest. And then following Chief Turnipseed's presentation, we'll have a presentation from Staff Specialist Mike Zarodka on a Walker River restoration project, restoring some of the sinuosity, the bends and curvature in the Walker River. And Mr. Zarodka will give us a presentation, a progress report on that project. So with that, Chief Turnipseed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Chief Game Warden Tyler Turnipseed, for the record, for those who don't know me. One thing that always takes me by surprise is when I see the back of my head on that TV screen. I'm not used to that view, and it's not the best. But like Director Wasley said, we've sort of made it most of the way through most of our big game seasons, but we're still, of course, neck deep in all those cases. Tomorrow I had a list that Director Wasley may read a portion of as far as all the cases that we're actively working on right now, and it was pretty staggering. There was about 2 pages of bullet points on all the things that are going on around the state. But so I put together a little bit of a slideshow, just some of the more high-profile things that we've done in the last year, as well as just some overview of who we are and what we do. Some of which was a little bit redundant from when we did the similar presentation in January with last year's cases, but we'll skip through some of the outdated stuff. Oops. This thing works way better when you turn it on. So again, Tyler Turnipseed, that's a picture from back in my field work days that I hearken back to when the office gets a little bit stressful, but those are good times. So a little bit of history. The Office of Nevada State Game Warden was first appointed in 1917. Director Wasley and I have talked about maybe doing something next year to commemorate that, sort of the 100-year anniversary of game wardens in Nevada, but we haven't landed on exactly how we're going to do that yet. From the beginning, game wardens, of course, enforced laws basically similar to what we do today: seasons, licenses, and bag limits. That aspect hasn't changed a whole lot. Of course, in modern times, we've added in the boating safety component and then some of the other things that we get into. We've got about 31 field game wardens in the state, plus 4 captains, 3 lieutenants, and hopefully 3 regional investigators soon to come, and then myself as a chief, giving us a total of about 40 or 41 total commissioned officers. And then we add in another 12 non-commissioned, including dispatchers, radio techs, and secretarial help. If you take that number, 31 field wardens, and divide it by the 110,000 square miles Nevada has, we average about 3,500 square miles per game warden. But when you consider we have about 14 or 15 officers stationed in Clark County, because of the boating safety component, that puts us patrolling the rest of the state with 16 or 17 wardens. So that makes it to the point where a lot of our officers patrol upwards of 10,000 square miles. I know when I was in Winnemucca, I used to tell people I patrolled an area the size of Massachusetts by myself. Of course, our biggest challenge, you guys have heard me beat this drum before, our biggest challenge in recent years has been officer retention. And when you start looking at the numbers, it's a little bit scary. In less than 3 years, we've replaced more than half of all of our wardens. This, of course, makes a lot of work for us. It seems like I've been chief now about 27 months, and it seems like 80% of what I do is work on recruiting, hiring, and training new game wardens. By the time we go through the recruiting process and then background investigations, polygraphs, psychological evaluations, all that sort of stuff, then we hire them, go to a post academy. After a post academy, we put them through our own NDOW mini academy that's specific to wildlife and boating enforcement, and then an extensive FTO program. It ends up being about a year before we actually have boots on the ground in a person's patrol district. That FTO program is a little bit of a struggle for us right now because we're really lacking in officers in the 5 to 10 year range. Less than a third of our field wardens have 5 years experience. So we've got a few officers with 20 plus years, and then the vast majority have 5 or less. So we're really lacking in that 10-year experience area that will make the best field training officers. Ends up with a situation where you end up putting a brand new warden with a field training officer, and that field training officer may only have 3 or 4 years on. So we're still trying to get caught up in that arena, and we're on the lookout for good candidates all the time. We've started to look at what we need to do better in terms of recruiting. This is a job fair we just did at Hug High School last week, or 2 weeks ago now. And we probably won't see that pay dividends for a few years, but we're thinking if we can touch a few people when they're in their high school years and starting to think about careers, that may pay off for us in a few years. A lot of you guys have been contacted by game wardens in the field. You know a little bit about what we do, but it's a great career. I have no regrets. I've loved almost every minute of it. You're alone a lot, odd hours, remote places, and extreme weather. You know, it may be 120 degrees on the Colorado River in Laughlin, or it may be 20 below with chains on all floors getting stuck in the snow. We give our officers a lot of responsibility to think for themselves without a ton of supervision, and hopefully they have the ability to make their own decisions and take action when needed without a ton of supervision. We just had 3 new officers graduate from post last week, those 3 in the middle, and got another one about to graduate down south in Henderson, and then we're about to hire 2 more that are just finishing up their background process. A few high-profile cases from this last year. Of course, as I said earlier, we've literally got hundreds of cases that happen throughout the year, and probably 50 or 60 of those are in progress right now as we speak, but I just grabbed a couple that made some media headlines and had some high-profile attention. In February this year, we arrested a gentleman out of Arizona who happened to get pulled over in an unrelated traffic stop, and the Elko police officer was sharp enough to notice some eagles and eagle parts that he had in his car. Called us. When we got there, we ended up sorting out 2 freshly killed eagles and a freshly killed hawk, plus wings from 2 more freshly killed hawks and 124 feathers. It's a little bit shocking, I guess, or surprising as to why, but eagle parts unfortunately have a huge value in the black market for Native American ceremonial trade and headdresses and all that sort of stuff. And there are legal ways to acquire those. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has an eagle repository. When birds get electrocuted or roadkill or whatever, we send those birds to the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they literally part them out to give out eagle parts specifically for Native American ceremonies and heritage. So, but unfortunately, I think the demand is greater than the supply, so it encourages a few people to go out killing eagles and selling eagle parts. The booking photo for this gentleman, and then some of the stuff that we seized out of his car: a couple eagles, like I said, a 17 HMR rifle, and 124 feathers, and 1,000 rounds of ammunition. He was pretty free and easy to talk. He basically said, yeah, he drives around in his car and looks for eagles perched on power poles and shoots them, runs out and grabs them and drives off, and was not shy about that. Another one that's very current, in fact, a press release will probably be going out on it today or Monday. Over the last few weeks, our officers have discovered 8 mule deer in the Mount Charleston area that have been shot and left, mostly completely intact, with no meat taken off of them, not even the heads taken off of them in some cases. In a couple cases, there was some meat removed, back straps and hindquarter parts, but most of them were just left to waste. A little note there, I'll show you some pictures, but a lot of these crimes are hard to solve, but we get pretty good at doing some of our own CSI work. We look at tire tracks, footprints, shell casings. The bullet forensic stuff is really interesting when you do recover a bullet from an animal, looking at lands and grooves and rate of twist and all that sort of stuff is interesting to be able to try to pin a bullet back to a person. Same thing with brass, empty cartridges, a firing pin leaves a fingerprint, that sort of stuff. Here are a couple of those deers, mostly bucks, a lot of mature bucks, and for whatever reason shot and left over the last month or 2. You can see these ones are still in velvet. They were at the beginning of it, and like I said, we'll be sending out a press release here shortly looking for information on this one to try to develop some more suspect info. We also just recently filed charges about 2 weeks ago on a big case that was an ongoing investigation for us. A 42-year-old Utah woman and her husband out of Tremont in Utah were charged with felony killing of a big bull elk. And then in a related but separate incident, another man from their camp had killed a cow elk. This is all up in Unit 081, right in the northeast corner. Essentially, they have Utah tags, but were hunting in Nevada by a mile or 2, and knew very well what they were doing. Lied to us throughout the investigation. They're both facing, or all 3 of them are facing additional charges for hindering a game warden and hunting during prohibited time of day. This is the bull they killed. He's got some broken tines, but of course, a big trophy bull that a lot of hunters wait a lot of years to draw the tag for, and it's a shame when it goes to someone doing it illegally. So hopefully some court dates coming on that one. The charges were just filed, so it's still in the early stages. Throughout the investigation, we've discovered several kill scenes from other animals, mostly elk, that we're going to go back and look at and match up with some other stuff that we think are going to lead to charges on probably 3 or 4 more additional animals that we weren't aware of till we got digging into this one. This one was a really interesting case. I reported on this one back in January, but at that time we hadn't made it as far as we have now. Happened down in Lincoln County. Of course, as you know, Lincoln County is sort of the epicenter for poaching problems. It's got its own set of wildlife ethics, and then tons of Utah people, tons of Vegas people that go to Lincoln County to recreate, and it's known for producing some of the biggest trophy deer and elk in the state. In this case, if you remember, we were lucky enough, a rancher near the Pearson Ranch found a dead elk near one of his fields, happened to have some trail cameras out trying to monitor elk usage of his fields to try to get a count on the number of elk using his alfalfa field. When he went to review these pictures, realized that he captured a photo of our suspects. This is about 2 o'clock in the morning. Not a great photo, of course, not really identifiable to who it is, but definitely a good clue that we were able to work with. Here's the elk, essentially cut the head off, left the rest to waste, tried to hide it in some brush right off the edge of the alfalfa field, and was discovered. There were no bull elk seasons going on in Nevada at the time, so of course definitely something we wanted to look into, not only from the fact that there was no season open, but obviously they wasted the whole thing and trespassed to do it. So this is our warden, John Anderson from Panaca. He's a busy man this time of year, but so John went, processed the scene, again looking for that tire track evidence, bullet casings, bullets in the animal, that sort of stuff. Fast forward 6 or 8 months, through some new technology we've been working with, we were able to identify a suspect or two, worked with some local people, came up with this photo of what we felt was the dead elk, or at least the head of the dead elk in the suspect's vehicle. And we're obviously from this photo we were growing more and more confident that we had the right person. Looking at what we were going to do next, and I said, you know, I think we have live photos of this animal the day before. Let's compare the two. And if you look at this bull, he's got a real distinct point coming off of his, he's got an extra point coming off of his fourth on the left side, and on his right side, he's got an extra point, sort of looks like a backwards antler coming off his fifth point. Not a very common antler configuration, so sorted through all the photos from that trail camera, found this one clearly a match of that bull with the points going backwards off his fourth, and this picture was taken about 13 hours before he was shot. So from this, we were able to say, okay, we've got the right person. We've got the photo of the head, the elk head on his four-wheeler, and we were confident at this point we had the right person. It's a young gentleman out of Cedar City, Utah, who happened to be in New Zealand guiding red stag hunters for the summer. So we had to sit on our information for about 3 or 4 months until he showed up back in Cedar City, and we went and arrested him. He's Zachary Holdaway. He's 26 years old, out of Cedar City. He had recently quit a job working for some industry company to become a full-time guide. He's facing charges. He's already been talking to the prosecutors in Lincoln County about trying to come to some sort of a plea agreement, but he's facing several felony charges and several misdemeanors. This one we touched on last year. I left it in here partly for Commissioner Allenberg because he hadn't seen it yet, I don't think, this presentation from January. But this case was reported by an eyewitness for sort of a shout out to our Operation Game Thief program. Gentleman called in, and luckily one of our Ely game wardens was able to get there and contact the guy coming out of the area, which is a little bit rare for us. Quite often we get a call a day later or a week later, or if it is a current call, sometimes our officer's 3 hours away just because our patrol areas are so big. But in this case, we got there and made the case. This buck was killed in Great Basin National Park, and like I said, it's redundant from last year, but I left it in there because it's such a big buck, and a good case that worked out because of our Operation Game Thief program, sort of like secret witness for wildlife crime. And then the other reason I left it in there, the prosecutor in White Pine County is a wildlife enthusiast, loves our cases, and has sent a message that if you're going to poach big game animals, don't do it in White Pine County. This gentleman ended up with a $9,000 civil penalty, as well as license revocations for 5 years. Of course, these things are complex. Studies show that only 3 to 5% of all poached animals are ever discovered or reported, but we try to do the best we can with what we got, and I'm proud of our accomplishments every year when we do make good cases. Switching gears a little bit, the other half of our job, of course, is boating safety enforcement. We do the majority of the boating enforcement on our lakes and rivers. Of course, the focus of that a lot of the year is on in Clark County, Lakes Mead, Mojave, and Colorado River. This is on Mead here. And then, of course, we do it on South Fork Reservoir, Rye Patch, Lahontan, Tahoe, a bunch of other waterways too. But over the last 10 years, we've gone to a new patrol boat. These are called safe boats. It's a rigid hull aluminum with a foam ring around the outside, and they're a little bit pricey, but they're great boats. We investigate a lot of boat accidents every year, average about 5 fatalities every year. This last year, worked on a bad one that was a propeller cut, in which a gentleman was chopped into a lot of little pieces by a propeller that ran over him. A lot of personal watercraft collisions. We're really strict on personal watercraft spraying each other. You know, it seems fun when you're doing it, but we work a lot of broken legs and fatalities from jet ski versus jet ski when they're darting in and out, racing around. That's not where you want to see your boat on a sunny Saturday, but we see crazy images like this a lot. I think we looked at this one last year. This was a lady who collided with a parked river taxi in Laughlin on the river. She had a blood alcohol level about 3 times the legal limit, as well as some other chemicals on board. That this day was her birthday and her last day. We touched on this one last year too. I actually left it in here for the governor to look at, but we'll kind of skim through it. This boat was reported adrift in the Virgin Basin on Lake Mead. When officers got there, found that the throttle was all the way forward and the kill switch was still activated, so somebody had clearly left the boat while it was underway. Got to looking at it a little bit closer back in our warehouse and realized that the steering had broke, which likely caused the boat to take a hard turn at speed and ejected the operator. And initially launched a couple of helicopters to search, couldn't find anything. Ended up looking at the GPS on the gentleman's boat. He was a bass fisherman and used his GPS pretty regularly. And the track feature was turned on, so we downloaded that, found his last couple weeks of fishing routes, cleaned it up to just that one particular day, and realized that we probably had our location. When you zoom in on that track, it shows the boat makes a hard turn to the south and then starts spinning around doing 360s across the lake. So we theorized that the body was likely in that spot where the boat made the hard turn. Contracted a company out of Las Vegas with a remote vehicle that went down and found the body same day. It was pretty incredible. A lot of these things take weeks to sort out, and this one all happened within a day. Probably would have never surfaced because he was in such deep water, but we were able to find him, and the location ended up being about 50 feet linear feet from where the boat made that turn. So I'll wrap up there. This is a great picture I always used, one of our patrol boats on the river in Laughlin during a wildfire. But I would answer any questions. Like I said, we've got a ton of investigations going on right now that are current, and may touch on some of those just in the department activity report. But it's a good time of year. I always looked forward to the seasons when I was working in the field. You know, it's sort of like the pinnacle of your year when the rifle seasons start. You know you're about to get busy, but then early winter, late fall, when the seasons wrap up, it's always a sigh of relief too, to know that things are going to slow down a little bit. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief Turnipseed. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, thank you.